was going to start this morning with, I was going through my book that I've had ever since I've been at this church, and I have like all the notes of Sunday school and all the notes of like Rick McClatchy's greatest moments. I call them Rickisms. And then I was going to start reading some of my favorites, and then I thought, no, Rick's not here to defend himself, so that would be really unfair.
That's the best time.
Best time, right? And some of them, they're so good, I'm like, man, I can't say that. But what I did write down is something that our pastor has said to me many times. He said in our Bible Bros group, he's even said here from the pulpit before, and it's a quote that goes something like, faith is acting like you believe what God said is true. So in other words, we say we have faith. Do our actions back it up? We say we believe in God, we believe in Jesus, we believe that He is the one way. But does our life back it up? We talked about this in Sunday school, where coming to church one day on Sunday and live 6 days out of the week is like something different. Does our life back up what we say we believe?
Come on.
To take it a step further, you say you're a follower of Christ. What evidence is there in your life to back that up? That if I went to your school, Lou, in Paisley School, and I asked them, tell me about Lou and Paisley, or I went to Mason's friends, or hey, I went to David, Roland, my mom, Miss Gail, whoever it may be, and I said, hey, tell me about them. Tell me about Mason. Tell me about Lou. Would one of the first things those people say is they are a follower of Christ? And does that matter to us? I think it matters a whole lot. We're going to look at a story just real quickly, and I'm going to try to read over my super high pulpit here, or little mic stand. I'm going to flip pages. In the Gospel of John, we'll be in chapter 11 today. Because, you know, John's preaching, John's going to talk from John. It is one of my favorite books from the Bible. And we're going to read a story about three people, Mary, Martha, and Lazarus, who their answer to this question is, you say you're a follower of Christ, is there evidence in their life? Their answer would be a resounding yes. There is evidence that we are followers of Christ, and our life revolves around the ministry, the love, and the message of Jesus. Mary, Martha, and Lazarus, they're all siblings. Anyone know this story? Mary and Martha. Martha was working really hard, and Mary, what was she doing? She was not working very hard. And Martha was like, Jesus, what's going on here? I'm working, I'm serving, and here's Mary. She's not doing anything. And Jesus says she's exactly where she should be, at the feet of Him. And then they have Lazarus. This is a close-knit family here. And Mary, Martha, and Lazarus lived in a little city called Bethany, about 2 miles outside of Jerusalem. And when Jesus would come into Judea, Jerusalem area, Bethany served as kind of like a home away from home for Jesus. This is where He stayed. And again, remember the human side of Jesus. He has real human emotions, real human connections and friendships. And we know from reading the stories about them, Jesus had a lot of love for Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. So we get to the story here in John chapter 11, and we're going to cover the whole chapter, and we're going to try to come by it really fast. You note the Chick-fil-A box right here? And the Chick-fil-A box is going to have a lot of meaning inside of it, what I want for our youth group, what I want for our youth ministry. And it's kind of the whole point of this message, but I'm not going to tell you the point of it until we get to the very end. And we're kind of keep going, reading through here. But John chapter 11, starting in verse 1. Now a man was sick, Lazarus from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. Mary was the one who anointed the Lord with perfume and wiped His feet with her hair. And it was her brother Lazarus who was really sick. What, she wiped His feet with what? Her hair? Does that not gross anybody out for a second? Like, you know, I'm seeing Sarah, she's nodding like, yeah, that really grosses her out. Let me put this down for a second. I'm going to read an article real quick about that, just because it caught me so interesting. And you see this down here, and I want to like explain that a little bit. This is from a biblical commentary. Feet were often dirty due to dusty roads, heat, and people wearing sandals. The roads were covered in animal droppings from sheep,
donkeys, camels, and horse farms. The combination of these factors made feet very dirty, and foot washing a very common practice. So I'm going to walk over here, just for the visual. Slip these off. If y'all need to stand and look at this, y'all can. I'm going to just stick my feet in this. And kind of walk here for a second. This dirty chili and beans here that we got here. And then it would start to really get dry, and it would just be dry, dust, animal droppings. So like imagine Raymond's working really hard on his farm, and he said, Marion, come over, I need you to wash my feet with your hair. That would be the situation here.
Mary.
And then here comes Mary, sitting at the feet of Jesus with this stuff all over his feet. Now it's dried, it's dirty from walking on the roads, because Jesus, he went around a lot. And she immediately, the first thing she's going to do is she's going to take her hair and she's going to wipe and clean the feet of Jesus. And it didn't bother her. Why? Can you get some water? And then you can come grab the water.
Okay, Mary.
He asked
Emma's
me
now
if I
gonna
would
do-
do it, and I told him he's not my Lord and Savior.
That's my girl.
So Emma's going to use just a rag so I don't get this on the Lumberton church carpet.
Thank you.
But why did it not matter to Mary that this is disgusting? Feet are disgusting. We already think feet are disgusting. Why did it matter? She knew who he was. Because for Mary, this wasn't just any man. This was her Lord. Am I have to do it? Emma said I have to do it, so because I'm not the Lord.
Use your hair, Emma.
Use your hair. Here, I'll be good. I'm going to stay with this right here. We'll clean it up later.
Please, I'll right there. He's gonna need it.
It said, even this is one other commentary I have, and I just might as well read it for the heck of it. Even if you had just left a Roman baths,
all clean and shiny, the time you got home, you would be filthy. There were no Hey Dudes, no Jordans, there were no shoes for the most famous gladiator at that time, and Jesus didn't have his own shoe brand, it was just sandals. And they were pretty disgusting. Let's keep reading. So the sister sent a message to him, Lord, the one you love is sick. When Jesus heard it, he said, the sickness will not end in death, but is for the glory of God, so that the Son of Man may be glorified through it. Now Jesus, here we go again, we see Jesus loved Martha, her sister, and Lazarus. So when he heard that he was sick, he stayed 2 more days in the place where he was. Then after he said to the disciples, let's go to Judea again. Does that not baffle some of you guys that I'm reading this? Jesus loved Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. He heard that Lazarus is sick. He's dying. So Jesus just stays where he is for 2 days. Sarah, if Rick was hurting or something was going on, would you just stay 2 days and be like, he'll figure it out? You'd hop in that minivan and you'd be going down Highway 11. But he stayed there. Why? Go back to verse 4. When Jesus heard it, he said, the sickness will not end in death, but it's for the glory of God, so that the Son of Man may be glorified through it. Jesus already knows how this is going to end. Jesus isn't worried about it, and he knows this is going to bring more glory than any miracle he has ever done up to this point. I'm reminded of that Toby Mac song that I've been playing in my head all week long. That quote of the words, or the song goes, it may be midnight or midday, never early, never late, he's going to stand by what he claimed. Well, I've seen my share of troubles, but the Lord ain't failed me yet. How's that for English, Mason and Linda? The Lord ain't failed me yet. So I'm holding on to the promises, y'all, that he's rolling up his sleeves again. We see in verse 7, then after that he said to the disciples, let's go to Judea again. There's some argument among the disciples. The disciples are like, Jesus, we just went there. We almost died. Jesus isn't worried about it. He says Lazarus is asleep. The disciples are like, wait, Lazarus is asleep, so why are we going back? And then Jesus tells them, no, Lazarus is actually dead. So we're going to go back to Judea again. When Jesus arrived, let's go to verse 17, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Bethany was near Jerusalem, less than 2 miles away, and many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them about their brother. As soon as Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went to meet him, but Mary remained seated in the house. Then Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you had just been here, my brother wouldn't have died. Yet even now I know that whatever you ask from God, God will give you. And here's Jesus. Your brother will rise again. Jesus told him, Martha said to him, I know that he will rise again in the resurrection of the last day. And I'm reading this thinking, wow, okay, Martha, you actually have a pretty good theological, doctrinal understanding. Like, she immediately goes to think last day, resurrection, and Jesus is like, it's not exactly what I'm talking about, which kind of negates the argument that women did not have a great theological understanding back in the day. Because here's Martha, listening, watching Jesus. She knows her theology, she knows her doctrine, and Jesus responds, I am the resurrection and the life. So this is one of Jesus' 7 I am statements in John. The one who believes in me, even if he dies, will believe. Everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this? And we can easily take Martha out of the equation, reading this, put ourselves in this situation. Jesus tells us, I am the resurrection, I am the life. The one who believes in me, even if he dies, he will live. Everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this? Do we? Because faith is acting like what you believe God said is true. Do we believe this? And then we have to ask ourselves, does our life reflect that we believe this? When we run into people that are lost, when we see dying, hurting souls that are lost, knowing that we have something that can save them, is it even in the forefront of our mind to share that news with them? Martha says, yes, Lord, she told him, I believe you are the Messiah, the Son of God, who comes into the world. Verse 28, having said this, she went back and called her sister Mary, saying in private, the teacher is here and is calling for you. As soon as Mary heard this, she got up and quickly and went to him. I made a little footnote here, and it may sound corny, you guys, or y'all. Jesus is here. His presence is here. He's even here in Lumberton. It may not feel like he's in Lumberton, but he's here. And I just love how Mary, like a giddy little schoolgirl, she's getting up and she's going because Jesus is here. And she wants to go see him. Jesus is here. And to be very transparent, not to step on toes, there are many Christians living in today's Christianity in America that it is too hard to get out of bed on Sunday morning and go to church. It's too much effort to read a Bible app scripture that pops up on a Bible app. It's too much effort to hum the words to a song. Here's Mary. Jesus is here. He's here. As soon as Mary heard this, she got up quickly and went to him. Verse 30, Jesus had not yet come to the village, but was still in the place where Martha had met him. The Jews who were with her in the house consoling her saw that Mary got up quickly and went out. They followed her, supposing that she was going to the tomb to cry there. Verse 32, as soon as Mary came to where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet. She's always at the feet. I'm telling you, something about it. Maybe they smelled really good because she was always anointing them. I don't know. Because she fell at his feet. Lord, if you had been here, my brother wouldn't have died. When Jesus saw her crying, and the Jews had come with her crying, he was deeply moved. In his spirit and troubled. Where have you put him? He asked. Lord, they told him, come and see. And Jesus, what? Jesus wept. Y'all may know this is the shortest verse in all of Scripture, but maybe one of the most profound of Jesus' humanity. Is there's Jesus. And he already knows how the situation is going to play out. He already knows that Lazarus is going to rise again, but here's that human side of it. Jesus wept. See how he loved him, some of the Jews say. But some of them said, couldn't he open the blind man's eyes, also have kept the man from dying? And I just have a little footnote here. Those people, there's just always going to be those people. The people that see the compassion, the crying, and they're like, wow, he must have really loved him. And then there's the people kind of looking at each other. Couldn't he, what's he been doing for 3 years? Couldn't he have saved this guy? And we could be really quick to throw stones at those people, but let's be really honest, we can also be those people. And maybe let's say, maybe they're not wrong, they're just honest. But this Jesus guy, couldn't he have actually done something about it? We're still watching. Verse 38, and Jesus, deeply moved again, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone was lying against it. Remove the stone, Jesus said. Martha, the dead man's sister, told him, Lord, there is already a stench because he's been dead for 4 days. If you're reading out the King James Version, Martha actually says, quote, he stinketh. So he stinketh. Jesus said to remove the stone. Martha, the dead man's sister, told him, Lord, he's already been stench. I read that part. Go to verse 40. Jesus said to her, didn't I tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God? So they removed the stone. Then Jesus raised his eyes and said, Father, I thank you that you heard me. I know that you always hear me. But because of the crowd standing here, I say this to you, so that they may believe that you sent me. After he said this, he shouted with a loud voice. What did he shout? Say it louder. What did he shout? Louder, one more time. What did he shout? Lazarus, come out. And the dead man came out, bound hand and foot with linen stripes, and with his face wrapped in a cloth. Jesus said to them, unwrap him and let him go. Can you imagine the shock? The disbelief that, in all honesty, it's a mummy standing up, walking towards you. You may think, run, there's a mummy, but no, there's this man. He's coming towards them. It's Lazarus. He's alive. And he probably doesn't stink it anymore. Hopefully not. Read down to verse 45, and we'll end with this verse on this chapter, then we'll move to 12 in a second. Verse 45 of 11, therefore many of the Jews who came to Mary and saw what he did believed in him, taking us all the way back to the very beginning of the chapter, when it says, when Jesus heard, when he heard that Lazarus was dying, he said, this sickness will not end in death, but is for the glory of God, so that the Son of Man may be glorified through it. We see in verse 45, therefore many Jews believed. A little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy by Jesus. That I'm going to be a little late, but he's not really late. He's not early. He's there at the exact right time. And there he is, Lazarus is alive, and totally, dramatically changes Mary, Martha, and Lazarus' life. Let me flip the pages for a second, because I kind of went off my notes, and I do that a lot. Let me grab some water, too. Then I'm going to grab the Chick-fil-A box. I'm going to try to not step over here on the carpet. That wouldn't be good. Oh, that was a close one. The two applications I want us to pull from the story, and we'll pull a little bit from chapter 12. Let me open my Chick-fil-A box. This has no significant theological meaning. This was in my car, and I needed a box. So here's a Chick-fil-A box. Here's number one. Encountering God. Mary, Martha, and Lazarus, they had a true, real encounter with God. Where God showed up, he showed up like a semi-truck, hit them, and he was this real encounter to them in their life. And we see they're drastically changed. Have we been changed? Granted, we're not going to have a moment where most likely where our brother is raised from the dead, but can we think back in our life and reflect for a second where God has showed up and showed out in our life? Think about that for a moment. Where God has shown up in our life. I think there's a lot of people, a lot of youth in our city that are really confused, that just don't know. That, in fact, I remember being in vacation Bible schools when I was a kid, and this is not to step on anyone's toes because I do believe kids get saved in vacation Bible school, but I remember sitting in a class of 100 kids. The preacher walked in, and the first thing he said, "Who wants to go to heaven?" Who all raised their hand? Everybody raised their hand. They said, "I want to go to heaven." He said, "Well, I want you to repeat this thing on this card for me, and then you can go to heaven." And then everybody in the crowd, everybody in the audience, all the kids, all the teachers watching, 100 kids got saved that night. Some of those same very kids, most of them, their life looks nothing like followers of Christ and looks something totally different. In fact, when they got to me at BSU, when I was leading BSU at Pearl River, there would be kids, countless times they would be crying in my arms, into other leaders' arms, saying, "I said the prayer when I was 8 years old, I said the prayer, I did this, and I don't think I said the prayer right, and I don't know if I said the prayer right, and I think I didn't really mean it, and I don't think I said point 2 right, and I really just don't know if I'm going to heaven." What are we doing? There's a man that I work with, and he said, "I said the prayer, just in case it's real." Because he said, "I don't want to get there and it be real, and I didn't say the prayer." I remember being a little kid, saying the prayer the first time, and I remember thinking I didn't say it right, but I was too ashamed to say it right the second time, so I remember saying, in my head, I remember sitting outside in the yard by the pond, that if I ever get to a point where I'm about to die, I'll just say the prayer again, and I'll mean it in my heart, and that way I'll go to heaven. We have a lot of people that are just confused. We have this story where Mary, Martha, Lazarus, they are changed by the power of Jesus Christ. And we have many people in our communities, in our area, that they think they've had an encounter. They think they're good, but there's no, evidence in their life to back it up. And they're confused. Further illustrate, Em and I were on the way here. This is about our logo that you're going to see that we're going to be using. Emma and I are on the way here from church today. We're late again, 2 weeks in a row. It's my fault. And we have a flat tire. So we pull off on the side of the road, and we're on Highway 11 coming up here to church. And I'm trying to figure out where the tire is. Turns out the tire's in the back of the trunk, so I get the tire out of the trunk. My golf clubs are in the way, so I gotta move my golf clubs out of the way and all this other stuff here. And we're trying to get set up, and then I'm cranking the car up, taking up off the lug bolts. I don't know what I'm doing, so here comes a YouTube video to watch to see, make sure I do know what I'm doing, so we're actually not better, worse off than what we are. And one of the lug nuts rolls off into the street, into the road. And I go running over to grab it and pick it up. And I'm face first looking at an 18-wheeler log truck barreling towards me. And it strikes me. It goes through me, I'm hit. And I'm totally fine. And I'm loving looking at these faces here because I just got struck by a log truck and everything are like, "You're lying." It's obvious because I obviously do not look changed. I haven't been hit by a log truck. Because it's impossible to have an encounter with something as big of a log truck and not be permanently changed. What's bigger, a log truck or the one true God?
Wow.
Yet we have people that think they've encountered God and they have no change in their life whatsoever. They live like the world, they talk like the world, and there's no change. We want to show them a different path here. We want to show them that Jesus said is the way, the truth, and the life. We want to show them a Jesus that can change their life. But to show them, we have to tell them what Jesus isn't. We got a lot of people, like I said last week, that believe they can't walk into this building if they don't have a nice enough suit or dress to walk in here. So that's point one. Having an encounter with God. We see Mary, Martha, Lazarus had that encounter with God. We want to show people, introduce people to Jesus. Then look in verse 12. Or chapter 12, verse 1. 6 days before the Passover, Jesus came to Bethany where Lazarus was the one Jesus had raised from the dead. So they gave a dinner for him. Martha was serving them. Lazarus was one of those reclining at the table with him. And then Mary took a pound of perfume, pure and expensive, and anointed Jesus' feet and wiped his feet with her hair. So the house was filled with the fragrance perfume. Point number 2 in here is we see a people that have had an encounter with God. We see a people that have been changed and are changing and following him. I don't know about you guys, but this picture here, here's Martha serving Jesus. Here's Lazarus reclining, this intimate setting, reclining back with Jesus, maybe popping a Coke or two. And then there's Mary, where she always is, at the feet of Jesus. I want that for our youth. I want that for our young adults, our older adults, our senior citizens. Anybody here that hasn't experienced the grace and love of Jesus, I want that for them. And we all should. There was a song that was playing a couple weeks ago, and I thought that I would play it for us today that kind of perfectly encapsulated this moment for me. Is encapsulated a word? Did I say that word right?
Yeah.
Encapsulated. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you, Mr. Grimmer, please. I needed you. So it encapsulated, right? Encapsulated the moment. We'll say encapsulated. I'll use that word. But encapsulated the moment. Encapsulated the moment.
There you go.
Of here's Mary at the feet of Jesus, and what I want to see for the youth of Lumberton. Lou's going to play that song for us, and I just want us to meditate that song for a moment, hear those words, and then I'll say a few more words, and then we'll close. That is it. You did it right.
The more I find you,
mentioning a moment ago, hearing words of songs and meaning them, not just singing words, but the words go, the more I seek you, the more I find you. The more I find you, the more I love you. I want to sit at your feet, drink from the cup in your hand, lay back against you and breathe, feel your heart. Think of Mary in our story. It's Mary. And I want us to be a church, a youth group that wants to bring people to the feet of Jesus. People that are hungry for it, that are thirsty for it, that have never even experienced it before. Because the more that we seek him, the more we find him. The more we find him, the more we love him. And I want everyone in Lumberton to love him and to have a relationship with him. And that's all I got here. I'm going to hand it over to Mason and let him close us here.